I never thought I'd become luggage. Left behind, ignored, like an afterthought. But there I was, 73 years old, sitting on a hard plastic chair at gate 12A, clutching a half-empty purse and a heart so shattered I couldn't tell which pieces to pick up first. The airport's announcements buzzed overhead, cheerful and robotic, while my entire world collapsed in silence. My daughter, Emily, and her wife, Rachel, had dropped me off like a stray dog. No explanation, no money, no ticket, just a cold goodbye and a hurried excuse. "Mom, we'll call you soon. Just wait here, okay?" That was 5 hours ago. I stared at the crowds rushing past me, each face another reminder of how invisible I'd become. The young couple arguing over gate changes, the businessman on Bluetooth, the mother chasing her toddler with crackers in her hand. Life moved on. Nobody noticed the elderly woman alone in the corner, her coat 2 winters old and her eyes older than that. I wasn't always this forgotten. Once, I was the woman who ran PTA meetings and sewed Halloween costumes with my own blistered fingers. I was the one who knew every birthday, every favorite color, every lullaby by heart. I worked double shifts at the diner when Emily got braces. I skipped dinners so she could have new soccer cleats. I stood in freezing gym bleachers cheering her name. And now? Now I was an afterthought. I checked my phone again. Battery at 3%. No messages. No calls. Just the mocking glow of silence. I had $5 in my purse, coins mostly in a travel-sized lotion. I didn't even have my insurance card. I thought back to that morning. "Mom, we're flying you to Florida," Emily had said with a bright smile. "Just a little vacation. Sunshine, beaches, early dinners, your kind of paradise." Rachel had nodded beside her, all teeth and politeness. "We already booked everything. Just pack light, okay? We'll drop you off and you'll be on your way." It felt off then, but I didn't question it. I wanted to believe them. I wanted to believe my daughter still cared. But Florida never came. Instead, I got dropped at an airport they never meant to return to. They'd turned off their phones. I tried to stand, knees aching, body stiff. I wandered to the service desk and cleared my throat. "Ma'am, I think I've been left here. My daughter dropped me off, but I don't have a ticket. Or money." The young woman behind the desk blinked, sympathetic but helpless. "I'm so sorry. Are you hurt? Do you have someone we can call?" I hesitated. I had numbers memorized, but I didn't have anyone. Not really. My husband passed 5 years ago. Cancer. Quick and cruel. My sisters had stopped calling after the inheritance dispute. Emily had been my only real family left. She used to call me her forever friend. What changed? They said they loved me. At least, Emily used to. Before Rachel. Before the tension. "She thinks you're controlling," Rachel had once whispered when Emily stormed out after an argument. "You push too hard. Guilt her too much." Maybe I did, but I was just trying to stay part of her world. I didn't know how to stop being a mother. I slept on their couch for months after my hip surgery. Cooked, cleaned, stayed out of their way. And yet, every day, I felt more like a burden than a guest. Now, I was neither. Just gone. "Would you like me to call the police?" the desk agent asked gently. I shook my head, swallowing the lump in my throat. No, no police. What would I even tell them? That my daughter tricked me? That she abandoned me because I'm inconvenient? There's no crime in being unwanted. The night grew longer. I found a quiet corner by the vending machines and sat, my bones hollow with shame. A janitor passed by, gave me a nod. I nodded back, too broken to speak. I watched the lights dim. I watched families reunite. I watched life move around me, but never toward me. And then I cried. Not loud, not messy, just quiet tears sliding down my cheeks like whispers no one hears. "Excuse me," a soft voice said. I looked up. A young woman stood there, college-aged maybe, holding a paper cup of hot cocoa. "I saw you sitting here earlier. Are you okay?" I wanted to lie. I wanted to say yes. But my voice cracked. "No, I think I was left." She sat beside me without hesitation. "Do you have someone I can call?" "No one who wants to hear from me." Her eyes softened. "Then I'll listen." And in that fluorescent-lit airport, beside a stranger, I told my story. Not all at once. Just pieces. She never interrupted. She never judged. She just sat, held space, and let my grief exist. "My name's Ava," she said eventually. "And my grandma raised me. She passed last year. I think maybe I was supposed to meet you." I laughed through my tears. "Or maybe I'm just pitiful." "No," she said. "You're just human." The kindness of one stranger didn't erase the hurt. It didn't bring back the years I gave or the love I thought I earned. But it reminded me of something I'd forgotten. That I still existed. That I still mattered. Somewhere in the wreckage of being abandoned, I found a thread of dignity. Ava helped me charge my phone. She bought me a sandwich. She even helped me call a local women's shelter for the night. She didn't save me, but she saw me. And sometimes, that's the start. I spent that night in a small room at a shelter Ava had found for me, just a 20-minute drive from the airport. The cot was narrow, and the blankets smelled of bleach, but I was too exhausted to care. I hadn't eaten much, just half a sandwich Ava insisted on buying me, but I couldn't stop shaking. Not from the cold, from the truth. I had been abandoned. When you're 73 and your only daughter leaves you in a public place like you're disposable, it's not something your mind can explain away. I couldn't pretend she just forgot. I couldn't tell myself she'd be back. She had chosen this. I lay awake listening to the distant sound of traffic outside and the quiet snoring of other women in nearby rooms. Some of them had been battered. Some were running. Some just had nowhere else to go. And I was one of them. Me, Marjorie, Helen Connor's former secretary, mother, wife, church choir singer, and now nobody. But somehow, in that room with white walls and a flickering ceiling light, something cracked inside me. Not a breaking. Not this time. A shift. A voice whispered through the darkness. My own voice. You are still here. You are not done yet. The next morning, the shelter coordinator knocked softly at my door. Morning, Ms. Marjorie, she said kindly. You're welcome to stay a few days. We've got meals, showers, and a caseworker who can help you make some calls if you're ready. I nodded, sitting up slowly. My bones ached like they'd carried years I hadn't counted. Thank you, I murmured. I don't know what to do. She smiled gently. You don't have to know. You just have to take the next step. So I got dressed. I brushed my hair. I accepted the warm oatmeal and weak coffee like it was a blessing from heaven. And I began again. I called Emily 3 times that week. No answer. Not once. No voicemail either, just a cold, automatic message. This user is not available. Goodbye. Rachel had blocked me long before this happened, probably after I questioned why they never let me babysit the twins. It's strange how silence can feel louder than shouting. By Friday, I had a caseworker named Angie. She was kind, with glasses that kept sliding down her nose and a voice like warm butter. Let's get you back on your feet, she said cheerfully. Do you have any pension or savings? I told her the truth. My pension was small, and most of my savings had been used when my husband got sick. Emily had promised to help with my prescriptions and co-payments. Don't worry, she had said. You won't need to touch your retirement. We've got you, Mom. Now, I had nothing. No car. No home. No income. No family. Just my name. And a heap of shame. I can help you apply for assistance, Angie said. Housing vouchers, food stamps, even some part-time work options. I know it's hard at your age, but it's not impossible. I stared at her. Work? At 73. She nodded. There's a charity thrift store that hires seniors. They love people with a sense of order and good manners. And you have both, I bet. I let out a tired laugh. I can fold sweaters. I used to run an entire supply closet at the school where I worked. Then let's put that to good use, she grinned. The first time I stepped into the thrift store, I thought I'd hate it. The fluorescent lights, the dusty shelves, the smell of secondhand fabric. It reminded me of garage sales I used to avoid. But then I met Ruth. Ruth was 80, tough as nails, and had worked there for 15 years. Abandoned by my son, she told me flatly while hanging up purses. Thinks I'm too much trouble. But guess what? I'm still standing. She looked me up and down. You will too. Something about that place felt right. We laughed while folding clothes, shared old stories, judged ugly shoes, and helped young mothers find jackets for their kids. People smiled at me. They said thank you. They asked for my opinion. For the first time in months, I felt useful. But nights were still hard. I'd lie awake in my small room at the transitional housing center, better than the shelter, but still temporary, and wonder what I'd done wrong. Was I too strict as a mother? Was I too needy after my husband died? Did I smother Emily with love she didn't ask for? I replayed every birthday party, every graduation, every bedtime story, searching for where I lost her. Some nights, I cried. Not for pity. For the years I couldn't get back. For the kitchen where we used to bake cookies. For the empty chair at Thanksgiving last year when she said they were too busy to travel. But other nights, I just stared at the ceiling and whispered to myself, "You are still here. You are not done yet." 2 months passed. I got promoted to cashier at the thrift store. Ruth cheered louder than anyone. I opened a bank account. I got approved for a small studio apartment through Senior Housing Services. It wasn't much, just one room, a kitchenette, and a narrow bed. But it had a window, a plant, a shelf where I placed a photo of me and my husband on our wedding day. I even bought a used kettle. For tea. For comfort. For the life I was learning to live again. Then one afternoon, as I wiped down the counter at the thrift store, a voice froze me in place. "Mom." I turned. There she was. Emily. Standing 10 feet away, holding a bag of toddler clothes, her face pale and stunned. Rachel wasn't with her. Just the twins Lily and Max, who were now nearly 6, their eyes wide with recognition. I didn't speak. Neither did she. Time stretched like a rubber band between us, thin and trembling. Finally, she stepped forward. "What are you doing here?" I blinked. "I work here." "What are you doing here?" She looked down, shame flickering across her face. "The kids outgrew everything. This store has good stuff, and it's close to their school." "Convenient," I said flatly. The silence between us turned sharp. She opened her mouth, closed it again. The twins clung to her legs. "Can we talk?" she finally asked. I looked around. Ruth gave me a look and a small nod. I took a deep breath. Not here, but yes. Back at my apartment, over hot tea, we sat across from each other like strangers. Emily looked thinner, tired. Her nails were chipped. Her voice trembled. "I'm sorry, Mom." I stared at her. "For what?" Her eyes welled. "For everything." I waited. She wiped her face. "Rachel and I were drowning. Financially. Emotionally. The pressure, we didn't know what to do." "So you left me?" "No," she whispered. "Rachel did. I didn't know she planned it until after. I thought we were dropping you off for a flight. I didn't know there was no ticket. When I found out," she sobbed, "I was too ashamed to call. Too scared of what you'd say. And Rachel, she told me not to go back and undo what's done. We fought. A lot." I listened, heart hammering. "I missed you," she said. "I've missed you every day." My hands shook as I held my cup. "Do you know what it felt like?" I said, "sitting at that airport, waiting for someone who never came." She nodded, tears streaming. "I thought I didn't matter," I whispered. "You do," she said. "God, Mom, you do." The healing didn't come all at once. We had to rebuild from ruins. She didn't move me back in. I didn't ask. But she called. She brought the kids. We had dinner once a week. Some days were good. Some were still raw. But I was no longer waiting at Gate 12A for a love that wouldn't return. I had a job, a home, a purpose. And slowly, I had my daughter again. That first dinner was awkward. Emily brought over pasta in a foil pan and a store-bought cake. The twins were restless, whispering to each other and fidgeting with their spoons. Emily looked at everything but Mimi walls, my dishes, my tiny secondhand dining table. "You've made it cozy," she finally said, trying to smile. "I try," I replied, cutting the garlic bread. There was a time when we could fill a room with laughter, when even silence felt warm. But now the silence had weight. It carried history. Still, we talked. I asked about the twins, what books they liked, who they sat next to in class. I complimented Emily's sweater. She asked about my work at the store. None of it was deep, but it was real. A beginning. And when she left that night, she hugged me. Not out of habit. Out of guilt. Out of regret. Maybe even out of love. It was a start. A few weeks passed. Then a month. Then another. Emily called me more regularly. Sometimes to vent. Sometimes just to say hi. She'd even bring the kids on Sundays, and we'd make pancakes in my little kitchen. I bought crayons and a small table for them. I even found a box of old children's books in the donation bin at work. Ruth let me take them. The twins started calling me Grandma again. And for a while, that filled something in me. But the wound wasn't healed. Not completely. One rainy afternoon, while folding sweaters at the store, I asked Ruth, "Have you ever forgiven someone who didn't deserve it?" She paused, then said, "Honey, forgiveness ain't about what they deserve. It's about what you deserve. Peace." I nodded, but the words took days to settle. I still couldn't shake the memory of that airport. Of Emily turning her back, whether she meant to or not. Of the hollow ache that came when I realized I'd been discarded. She may have been manipulated by Rachel. She may have been overwhelmed. But she was still my daughter. and she still let it happen. I deserved more than crumbs of guilt. Then came the day Emily knocked on my door, eyes puffy, shoulders slumped. She left me, she said. I blinked. Rachel. She nodded, stepping inside like she didn't know where else to go. Took her things while I was at work. Left a note. Said she was tired of carrying dead weight. I made tea. We sat. She cried harder than I'd seen since her father's funeral. I gave her everything, she whispered. And she just walked away. I reached across the table and took her hand. For a long time, we sat like that. Two women broken in different ways by the same person. Now you know, I finally said, what it feels like to be left with no explanation. She nodded slowly. I'm sorry, she whispered again. Not just for the airport. For all the times I made you feel small. In that moment, something shifted between us. Not a reset, not a forgetting, but an understanding. We both knew what it meant to be abandoned, to be cast aside when love became inconvenient. And maybe that was the beginning of something real. Not the mother-daughter fantasy I once clung to. Something stronger, honest. In time, Emily offered to help me move in with her and the kids. I said no, not out of spite, but because I had finally built something for myself. A life, a rhythm, a place that was mine. I wasn't a woman waiting to be taken in. I was a woman standing on her own 2 feet again. I love you, I told her, but I'm not going back to needing you to feel needed. She nodded. She understood. Now, we meet on equal ground. I babysit sometimes. She brings groceries. We celebrate holidays together. But I live my own life. One Saturday at the thrift store, Ava came by. She hadn't seen me since the night she found me crying by the vending machine. I heard you were working here, she smiled, hugging me. I had to come see for myself. I smiled. You saved me. No, she said. You saved yourself. I just reminded you you could. Later that day, I found a box of unused thank you cards in the donation pile. One had sunflowers on the front. I took it home. I wrote in careful, looping script. Dear Ava, I will never forget your kindness. In a moment when I believed I didn't matter. You saw me. Thank you for giving me the courage to rebuild. Love. Marjorie. I mailed it the next day. Life isn't what I imagined it would be at 73. I thought I'd be baking cookies in my daughter's kitchen, watching my grandchildren grow from the comfort of a family home. I thought I'd be loved and cared for in return for all the years I gave. But that's not how things turned out. Instead, I live in a small apartment. I fold clothes at a thrift store. I make tea alone some nights. But I am not lonely. I have friends. I have purpose. I have dignity. And best of all, I have peace. Not because someone gave it to me. Because I found it. For myself. Spring came slowly that year. The trees outside my apartment bloomed in soft pinks and whites, and the wind didn't bite the way it used to. I started walking to work instead of taking the bus. Just 15 minutes through the neighborhood, past the bakery, past the dog park where the same golden retriever chased the same red ball every morning. Routine saved me. Not excitement. Not drama. Just the comfort of small, predictable joys. At the thrift store, we reorganized the book section. Ruth finally convinced management to put in a little reading corner with 2 armchairs someone had donated. I spent my breaks there sometimes with a cup of tea in hand, sometimes flipping through battered copies of classics I hadn't touched since college. One Tuesday afternoon, a customer tapped me on the shoulder while I was shelving books. Excuse me, she said, holding up a dress. Do you think this would suit my mother? She's about your age. Feisty. Loves blue. I blinked, taken aback by the comparison. But then I smiled. That color would look beautiful on someone with a bold spirit. She grinned. That's my mom, all right. Something in my chest warmed. Not because I missed being seen as someone's mother, but because I was starting to see myself as someone again. Emily came by more frequently now. Not because she had to. Because she wanted to. One Sunday morning, we sat on a park bench watching Lily and Max chase pigeons across the grass. She leaned back, sunglasses on, hair in a loose bun. You know, she said, I used to think I had everything under control. The house, the kids, Rachel. I thought if I could keep it all perfectly balanced, nothing would fall apart. But it did, I said gently. She nodded. And when it did, I took it out on you. I looked at her, eyes soft. You took your fear and handed it to me like it was mine to carry. She swallowed hard. I did. And I was wrong. That was the closest she'd come to full accountability. And it was enough. Not because it fixed the past, but because it showed me she'd finally seen it clearly. We watched the twins collapse into the grass, giggling, arms flailing like birds with broken wings. "They love you," she said. "I love them more than they'll ever know." That night, I wrote in my journal a habit I'd picked up thanks to Angie at the shelter. She once told me, "Write what you're afraid to say out loud. That's where healing hides." So I wrote, "There are moments I still feel like I'm waiting at that airport, waiting for someone to come back for me. But now, I realize I came back for myself. And maybe that's the bravest thing I've ever done." Work at the thrift store picked up in the spring. We held a community sale, and people flooded in looking for budget prom dresses and vintage finds. I helped a high schooler pick out a gown with sequins that shimmered like sunlight. She gasped when she saw herself in the mirror. "I feel like a queen," she whispered. "You are," I said, straightening her straps. She hugged me. For a moment, I forgot about my age, my past, my losses. I was just a woman helping another girl feel seen. And that mattered. Around May, Ruth had a fall. She was stocking shoes when a step stool gave out from under her. I visited her in the hospital that night. Her leg was in a cast, her hair flattened against the pillow, but her spirit was as sharp as ever. "Guess my bones are as brittle as my patience," she joked. I sat beside her, holding her hand. "You've done so much for me," I said quietly. "You don't even know it." She looked at me, eyes soft. "You didn't need saving, Marjorie. You just needed someone to remind you who you are." We sat in silence for a while. When I left, she said, "Promise me something. Anything. Keep showing up. For yourself. For others. That's how we stay alive in this world." I nodded. "I promise." The apartment felt emptier that week. Ruth's absence echoed like a missing heartbeat. I spent more time with the twins. Lily had started writing stories. Max wanted to be an astronaut. I helped them with school projects and baked cookies with too much vanilla. One night, Lily asked me, "Grandma, were you ever scared when Mommy left you at the airport?" I froze. Emily looked horrified. "Lily," but I waved her off. I knelt down, looked Lily in the eyes. "Yes, sweetheart. I was very scared. And very sad." "Did you cry?" she asked. "I did. But you're okay now?" I smiled, my voice steady. "I'm better than okay. I'm stronger." Lily hugged me, her tiny arms tight around my neck. "I would never leave you." And in that moment, something healed in me that I didn't know was still broken. In early June, Angie from the shelter called me. "I've been following your progress," she said. "We're hosting a support group for older women who've experienced abandonment and emotional neglect. Would you consider speaking?" I hesitated. I don't know what I'd say. She chuckled. "You already know. You've been living it." So I said yes. The night of the meeting, I wore my nicest cardigan and clutched the note cards I'd scribbled on during my lunch breaks. 12 women sat in a circle, some younger than me, some older, all with eyes that had seen too much silence. I stood and said, "My name is Marjorie. I was left at an airport by my own child. And for a long time, I thought that meant I didn't matter anymore. But then I found strangers who became friends, a job that gave me dignity, and a voice I didn't know I still had. I want you to know it's never too late to be new again." One woman cried. Another came up after and hugged me without a word. And just like that, I found another kind of family. By July, Ruth was back at work part-time. She used a cane now and moved slower. But her wit was sharper than ever. We ran the register together one slow afternoon, and I told her about the support group. "You're becoming quite the local legend," she smirked. I laughed. "Don't say that. I'm just trying to stay upright." She squeezed my hand. "You're doing more than that. You're walking proud." That weekend, I invited Emily and the kids to my apartment for my birthday. I didn't expect anything big, but they showed up with balloons, a homemade cake, and a framed photo of me, Lily, and Max sitting on that park bench last spring. Emily handed it to me. "We thought you should have something that reminds you of where we are now, not where we were." I touched the glass, tracing the smiles on our faces. "Thank you," I whispered. That night, after they left and the apartment quieted down, I sat by the window with my tea, watching the summer stars blink into the sky. For years, I had lived for others. Now, I lived for myself too. I wasn't just a mother, or a grandmother, or a woman who'd been abandoned. I was Marjorie Helen Connors. And I was not done yet. Summer drifted into autumn. The leaves changed colors outside my window, bright and defiant like they refused to die quietly. I found myself smiling more, laughing more, Not because life had become perfect, but because it had become mine. I no longer woke up each morning wondering who might leave me. I woke up wondering what kind of soup I'd make. Whether Ruth would bring in those lemon muffins from the bakery again. Whether Lily would call to read me her newest story. I had begun planting roots in a place I never expected to grow. One crisp Saturday morning, I got a phone call from a name I hadn't seen in years. Janet Brooks. My sister. I hadn't spoken to her since the inheritance dispute after our father passed. Harsh words were thrown. Old wounds reopened. We hung up the phone angry and stayed that way for nearly a decade. But there she was now, calling. I hesitated. And then I answered. Hello. Silence for a moment. Then her voice. Older, slower, careful. Marjorie? I heard what happened. Emily reached out to Megan. Megan told me. I'm so sorry. I sat down, my knees suddenly weak. Janet sighed. You didn't deserve that. No one does. I didn't know what to say. I'd like to see you, she added softly. If you'll let me. There was a time I would have slammed the phone down. But now I was different. I'd learned that holding on to anger was like trying to warm yourself with a fistful of ashes. She came the next week. She brought old photos. I made stew. We sat in my little kitchen for hours, flipping through memories we hadn't shared in years. We laughed over our ridiculous hairstyles. We cried when we found the picture of Dad with his fishing hat. I miss him, she whispered. Me too. We didn't talk about money. We didn't talk about the fight. Some things don't need revisiting to be forgiven. Sometimes, presence is enough. When she left that night, she kissed my cheek and said, You're stronger than I ever gave you credit for. I watched her walk to her car beneath the streetlight, and I felt whole. October came with its golden skies and chilly winds. Emily started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee dates and long walks. She'd call to ask my opinion, and I'd listen without judgment. You deserve joy, I told her one evening. Even after everything. She blinked back tears. So do you, Mom. That same week, Ava visited again. This time, she brought someone with her. This is my girlfriend, Janelle, she said brightly. I laughed. Ava, you're glowing. She smiled and leaned in. I'm thinking of proposing. My heart swelled. Tell her yes. 1,000 times yes. We all went out for dinner that night. Ruth joined twin. I sat there in the middle of that noisy diner, surrounded by people who'd entered my life when I was at my lowest. People who stayed. I wasn't anyone's leftover anymore. I was part of something. That Sunday, during my usual walk, I stopped by the airport. Not to relive it. To reclaim it. Gate 12A still looked the same. Still cold. Still impersonal. But I was different. I sat on the same bench where I once cried until my body shook. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Then I whispered, I forgive you. Not to Emily. To myself. I forgave myself for needing love. For being human. For holding on to pain longer than I should have. For believing I was disposable. I stood up. Straighter this time. And I walked away. Thanksgiving came. My apartment was too small to host, so Emily invited me over. I almost declined. Not because I was angry, but because I'd grown comfortable not depending on that space again. But she insisted. So I went. She'd cooked everything herself. The twins had made handprint turkeys. The table was set with mismatched plates and too many napkins. It was imperfect, and it was beautiful. When we sat down to eat, Emily raised her glass. I want to make a toast, she said. Everyone quieted. She looked at me. To the strongest woman I know. Mom, you have taught me what grace looks like. You taught me that healing isn't about forgetting. It's about walking through fire and still choosing kindness. Tears stung my eyes. Lily and Max clinked their juice glasses with my water. And for the first time in years, I felt thankful down to my bones. Winter brought snow. Thick and soft and silent. I bought myself a red coat from the donation pile. It was missing a button, but Ruth stitched one on for May, a little blue flower. You deserve to feel special, she winked. At the store, we wrapped gifts for a local charity drive. Ava dropped off 3 big bags of toys. I watched as Lily and Max helped sort them. You're raising them right, I told Emily. She smiled, eyes wet. You helped. One night, while reading in bed, I looked over at the small bookshelf in the corner of my room. The bottom shelf held only one thing. The boarding pass I never had. A framed piece of paper. Blank. Empty. I'd put it there as a reminder. That sometimes not going anywhere is what saves you. That the real journey is coming home to yourself. I'm 74 now. I still live in my apartment. I still work part-time. Ruth and I meet every Friday for coffee. Ava calls me her airport angel and sends me photos from her honeymoon in Oregon. Emily visits every Sunday. She never misses. And when she hugs me goodbye, I no longer wonder if she'll come back. Because I know now I don't need anyone to stay in order to be whole. I am whole on my own. And to you, the one reading this, if you've ever felt left behind, if someone you loved made you believe you were invisible, if your world fell apart in a place as ordinary as a terminal gate or a silent kitchen or an empty living room, hear me. You are not finished. You are not broken beyond repair. You are not too late for love, for purpose, for a beginning. You are still here. And that, my dear, is more than enough. Epilogue. The bench at Gate 12A. 3 years later, the airport was still cold. The lighting still too bright. The announcements still echoing through the high ceilings like voices that didn't belong to anyone in particular. But this time, I wasn't alone. I was sitting on that same bench at Gate 12 with a little girl next to me, her legs swinging, her small hand wrapped around mine. "Grandma," Lily whispered, "is this really the place where you got lost?" I smiled, brushing a loose curl from her cheek. "No, honey," I replied gently. "This is the place where I found myself." She tilted her head, confused, but accepting. Children don't need every answer. They just need presence. Emily had invited me to come along on their family trip to Colorado. A vacation she said she'd planned in my honor, because you were the one who taught me what rebuilding looks like. She had insisted I fly with them, not alone. But I asked for a different flight. A later one. Just a few hours. Because I needed to come here. To sit one last time in the place where my old life ended and my new one quietly began. I looked around. People were rushing, checking watches, dragging suitcases. No one looked up. No one noticed the woman with gray hair and the granddaughter beside her. And that was okay. I didn't need to be seen by the world. I had already been seen by the people who mattered. Lily reached into her backpack and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I made you something," she said proudly. It was a crayon drawing. A woman with white hair. A red coat. A little girl holding her hand. Above their heads, in wobbly letters, were the words, "My grandma is stronger than the airport." I laughed, full and deep, from a place in me that had once gone silent. I folded the drawing and placed it carefully into my purse. "Thank you, sweetheart. I'll treasure it forever." She leaned her head against my arm. We sat there for a while, just the two of us. Not abandoned, but anchored. When it was time to board, I stood up slowly, looking at the gate one last time. Not with pain, not with anger, but with quiet reverence for the place where I broke open and where the light got in. We walked toward the terminal, hand in hand, whole,